TalkSTL.com real spoilers powered by ReviewSTL.com.
Warning, the following film discussion will ruin the ending of any movie you haven't seen. Example, Bruce Willis is dead at the end of The Sixth Sense. See how I ruined it for you? Just like that. Here are a few more.
Rosebud.
Silent breed is people!
I am your father.
Get it?
TalkSTL.com real spoilers. You've been warned.
Broadcasting from a radioactive bunker deep inside the Bracket compound, this is Real Spoilers, and this week we will be tackling Elysium, the new Matt Damon, Neill Blomkamp. Am I saying that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's close enough.
Though the name Blomkamp to me always sounds like one of those fictional sexual fetishes.
It sounds like a really bad poop.
Yeah. It sounds like, like
I think you're thinking of Blumpkin.
Oh
yeah,
that's right.
I am. I think I am. That's what I'm thinking of. It always sounds like, am I saying this right?
So this is the part where I come in for the box office report.
Right. Like, I think I'm saying something. I might be saying something really filthy. I'm not quite sure. So, but before we get started, this week on Real Spoilers, we are a wounded beast. We're down 2.
Yeah.
We're down 2 this week. So, but we do have someone new sitting in whose name I've already forgotten. But we'll go around the table, and when you hear a name you don't recognize, because we have so many loyal listeners that know us all intimately, you'll know then. So let's start to my right.
Joe, and I won't do my last name to throw anybody off this time. I swear.
Yeah, weirded everybody out.
I know. I'm sorry.
My name is Steve. I'm stepping in this week. I'm one of the editors at ReviewSTL.com.
And I'm Kevin Brackett.
Oh, and you did have to throw in a last name.
Bastard. I did. I'm not as well known as the rest of the people here, so I'm trying to promote my brand a little bit.
I see. I get that. And I am Tom O'Keefe. And so before we get too deep into things, let's start with a box office report. Kevin has his abacus at the ready.
All right. So this week, no surprise, Elysium came out on Friday. It was number 1 at the box office. Analysts predicted 30 million, and it made 30.4. So
that's why they're analysts,
boom.
man.
Right.
Bam. You just got analyzed.
You did, exactly.
They're all the analysts, all the little guys with the horn rim glasses are walking around the house this week, all barrel chested, like, look what I did.
I told you it was going to make $30 million.
Don't question me, bitch.
It did. It actually opened up against 3, I won't say huge movies, but 3 pretty big pieces of competition here. On Wednesday, Where the Millers came out. Tom, you saw Where the Millers?
I did.
You may be the only one here. What did you think?
I liked it. I know it's getting pummeled by the critics, and I don't necessarily disagree with what they're saying, but for whatever reason, I enjoyed it. It was fine.
Jason Sudeikis, man, that guy's I love that guy.
I think that's what it comes down to is how much time do you want to spend with Jason Sudeikis? And not to sound all girly, but I don't mind spending 90 minutes with Jason Sudeikis.
He's all right.
Especially when he has Jennifer Aniston in tow.
As a stripper.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that fared pretty well. It actually made $26.5 million.
For a movie with no A-listers, and I'm sorry, I don't care what you say, Jennifer Aniston is not an A-lister.
She's a destroyer of movies.
Yeah,
she
was
at one point. She's not anymore.
She's never really, opened movies. She's been in movies that are hits, but, name the Jennifer Aniston movie that everybody still talks about.
Nope.
Horrible Bosses.
But it's not a Jennifer Aniston movie, right?
Right.
That's the one that immediately pops in my head.
Well, that's a shame because Office Space should immediately pop in your head.
I mean,
but that's okay.
Yeah, that's true.
That's okay. No, you're fine. You two want to switch chairs?
No,
I'm just kidding. But honestly, though, I'm giving you trouble. But Office Space doesn't pop in your head because she doesn't have an impact on the film.
Yeah,
she's just whatever. Nobody leaves Office Space going, "Oh my God, Jennifer Aniston was so funny."
Right.
That movie is so quotable. Does she have any lines that people quote?
Just pieces of flair.
That's about it. And so anyway, she's not an A-lister.
Yep. So that
still do her though.
So that's
gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
That did $26.5 million on a $38 million budget. So I think in the next couple weeks it will, at least close to make its money back, and then that's going to have a life on video. That's just one of those rentals.
Yeah. Yep. What do we know what they spent on that? They couldn't have spent that much
on Where the Millers.
Yeah.
37
or $38 million.
Oh wow, that's a lot tied up in a movie.
I'm sorry, 37 million.
But still, I wouldn't have thought that high.
And then Planes, which I thought was severely disappointing. Planes opened in the number 3 spot. It made $22 million for a huge, for a kids movie, especially based on a franchise like Cars that, the kids know and love. It's not that great of a opening.
Is it a Pixar movie?
It's a Disney movie.
It's not a Pixar movie.
A subtle but important distinction.
Yeah.
It is not a Pixar film.
Absolutely. And they would have really hurt their brand. Not that they didn't in the critics circle with Cars 2, but if this movie was a Pixar movie, they would have jumped the shark. But
that being said, if this movie was a Pixar movie, it wouldn't be this movie.
Well, right.
You know what I mean? Like
hopefully.
they didn't use Pixar staff to make this.
True.
And honestly, I think 22 million is good for this movie because it's budgeted at 50?
50, yeah.
So it's budgeted at 50. It's already made half. And let's not kid ourselves about what this movie really is. And I have seen nothing to back this up, but this is just what I feel about this movie. This was intended as a direct-to-video release, and then somebody said, hey, let's just go ahead and throw it in theaters for a couple of weeks. That'll be free money.
And that is the story behind it.
Is it?
That
Okay,
is
because
the
I
true story.
swear to God, I did not read that.
No,
it
was a direct-to-DVD, and they said, let's make it a theatrical.
Right, so they threw it in theaters for a week, so it's already made 22. They spent 50. It's going to hit at least, it's probably going to do 50 easy. And so, even if it stalls out at 50, you've covered your production costs, and then you put it out on DVD, and you'll make all the money. You'll make all the DVD money you would have made anyway. Plus, you'll probably make more because there's a lot of people like, I won't buy. Like, I'm a snob. Like, I'm not. Like, my kid wants a direct-to-DVD movie. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like this. Like I'm having the I'm having the shocked look that parents used to have when their kids told them they were gay or something, and I'm just like, no, I don't care about that. But direct-to-home video movies. Son.
Have you tried not getting a direct-to-home movie?
Yeah. Have you I have a
possible?
camp you can go to that will teach you to not like direct-to-video movies. This is awful. Like, why would I've raised you better than this? We're the O'Keefes. We don't do direct-to-video.
Was it something I did? Is it my fault?
Did you by chance catch Planes, Tom?
No, I did not.
Okay, so I'm the only one here that saw it. I won't obviously go into a full review of it, but those kids movies that we see now, the Pixar movies, the DreamWorks movies that are so entertaining for kids and have so many fun inside jokes for adults, none of them are in Planes. It's just the movie is extremely dialogue driven for a kids movie.
Right.
And so I couldn't help but to sense all the kids getting antsy and squirmy in their seats, and there was nothing to keep the adults entertained there. So all you're doing is waiting for the thing to end. I will say the visuals, when they have some POV shots of the planes and they're on the plane's wings and they're banking around and stuff, really neat looking stuff, right? But that's like 10 minutes of the movie. The rest is just dialogue, and most of it poorly written.
Which is why they got this done for $50 million.
Right.
Because $50 million for a film like this is very inexpensive.
Yeah, I would say it would be an above-average direct-to-DVD movie,
right?
But a really poor theatrical release, and I just can't imagine ever watching that again or having a kid not be antsy. So direct-to-DVD, when they can go play with their action figures whenever the movie isn't exciting, fine.
Yeah.
But not worth seeing in theaters.
You know what's really weird about it, too, is it looks to me so much like one of those movies you find at, like, the dollar store or something that's blatantly
a knockoff movie.
Yeah, the knockoff movies.
They,
the King of Lions.
We totally have
Do you have it?
Yeah.
I sent Joe a message the other day and asking him if he had a movie. Is it called Wings?
It's called
That's
Wings.
what it's called.
Yeah.
But
there's no Stephen Daly. But at least I don't think there is.
Tim Daly. Stephen Weber. Stephen Weber. The only reason I know that is because Tim Daly did the voice of Superman. That's the only reason I can back that up.
They're the same guy in my head forever. But yeah, I saw that in Walmart yesterday.
We have it.
Yeah, it's
totally
Wings. So it's like you have a knockoff. You already have like it's like a copy of a copy. It's really weird.
I blame Dane Cook for the lack of that movie.
I mean,
I really just blame Dane Cook for anything at this point.
I'll tell you, his voice work in it, and the charisma that shows through, to the character from him. I don't think he did a poor job, but the jokes and the writing was bad. But Dane Cook's performance is fine in it.
Did Dane Cook steal a lot of jokes?
I'm sorry?
Did he steal a lot of jokes?
He stole all the jokes
Right.
from Wings. That's what he did. It's all just from Wings.
So anyway, well, yeah, it's gonna make its money. You go through the stores already, and there's shelves of planes, and there's like pilot jackets of planes, and there's pajamas. The whole thing. They're gonna make some money on it, but definitely
This is gonna be a footnote.
Did Disney? Disney did Wreck-It Ralph, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was a Disney feature. Like Pixar had nothing to do with that.
But
correct.
That was an original concept.
I liked that.
And
that was
great.
Fantastic.
That's
yeah.
probably the best Disney feature animation film in 10 years, maybe.
They've got a bunch coming. There's a lot of their old school animation in the pipeline.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the D23 thing. They just announced 3 Disney animation, not the computer generated
Maleficent.
stuff.
So the bad guy from Sleeping Beauty.
That's live action. I mean, like cartoons. Like they've got cartoons in the pipeline that they haven't talked. Like Zootopia, I think, is something that's in the pipeline.
Boy, kids gonna have some rude awakenings doing Google image searches on that one.
Well, and I guess the last movie we'll touch upon real quick at the box office, number 4 was Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters. That's the sequel to Percy Jackson.
I believe its subtitle wasn't Sea of Monsters. I believe this. I'm not trying to correct you. I believe its subtitle was contractually obligated.
Yes. Right, exactly.
We signed them all for 2-picture deals, so screw it. Let's knock out another one of these
Whatever.
things.
Yeah, so that was the sequel to, what was the Olympian something?
Something or other.
But that opened
I believe
number...
it was Percy Jackson, not quite Harry Potter, I think is what the first one was.
Yeah.
Percy Jackson, we really timed this really badly.
Yeah, so that made $14 million. It's a $90 million budget, not extremely huge for that type of summer movie, but still, it's going to take a lot to get that money back, I think.
Look at that. Look at The Conjuring. That's awesome. I love that. I love the fact that it's actually making money and making lots of money.
Oh yeah, we talked about that last week. The Conjuring's number 8, but it still made another $6.7 million. It's at $120 million on that $20 million
That's
budget.
amazing. I love it.
That's good for the theaters, too.
Yeah.
They get to keep more of that revenue. Just the way the business model works, So anyway, that's the box office report. Thank you, Kevin. And I guess now we're ready to dive into Elysium, shall we? So I guess let's go around the table and see what people's thoughts. We'll start with Kevin while I pick up my highlighter.
Sure. So I really enjoyed this movie. I'll take a step back and say that District 9, I think, as most people were, I found myself pleasantly surprised. I didn't really know what to expect from it, but they did a lot of that viral marketing, and when I saw it, I instantly loved it. This Neill Blomkamp, who people didn't know yet, became an instant name, at least in my head, and I couldn't wait to see what he would come up with next. So Elysium comes out, and I see the trailers, and I'm just wondering, I hope this can hold up. District 9 was so good. And I saw it and was not disappointed. I know that there are some mixed reactions amongst critics, but overall it's getting a pretty positive...
Tom's over here raising his hand.
Right. It's getting pretty positive reviews, and I thought that it was an excellent summer film. I think it's one of the movies we've been waiting for all summer, and it pays off. I thought that Matt Damon was really good in the role. I'm not a huge Matt Damon fan, but he carried the film really well. He's an action star. He's been in the Bourne movies, and I think he used a lot of that in this, to kind of play that type of character. And I didn't think that it was a very heavy-handed movie. I know Tom's going to disagree with me.
Yes, very much so.
As District 9 did, it had those undertones, This was more about the 99% versus the 1%, universal health care. It had all those underlying topics, but to me, it didn't feel forced. I saw it as a good sci-fi thriller type of movie. It had good action in it, good acting from most. Jodie Foster, that's a different story.
Jodie Foster's performance was Razzie-worthy.
That
is easily the worst Jodie Foster performance ever.
Yeah, it was bad. But
it's so bad that guy doesn't want to kill Reagan anymore. That's how bad this performance was. He's like, on second thought, maybe not.
I'm glad she got shanked in the neck.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Spoiler. Oh, no, wait. That's okay.
Yeah. And we'll get to that because I have issues with that.
Okay. So anyway, I thought it was a solid film. I thought the visual effects were excellent. So District 9, that was a huge surprise. That was 2009, and it was an indie film. You didn't know this guy or who was doing this thing, and you saw it, and the entire movie is about aliens.
Was he under Peter Jackson at one point? Like, were they tied together?
Peter Jackson produced it.
Yeah, he produced it. That was District 9 was supposed to be a Halo movie, and then that fell apart.
I'm with you.
And they were kind of halfway through the beginning of production.
Okay.
And so they were like, well, let's turn it into something else. And so Neill Blomkamp came in and didn't come in. He was already in, but he
took
really
a short
he
film.
ran with it. Took a short film that he had made that had been on YouTube,
okay,
and turned it into a feature length using a lot of the pre-production stuff that they had in place. And
was he attached to The Hobbit at one point?
No,
Peter
I don't
Jackson,
think so.
yes, Peter Jackson.
Yeah, right.
So they take a film that the entire thing is about aliens, so it's very special effects driven, and they blend in seamlessly with real life, And so for an indie movie of that caliber, it's pretty impressive. And I think Elysium did the same sort of thing. It obviously had a much higher budget this time, but still, it wasn't astronomical.
Low by Hollywood standards.
Yeah, it had a $115 million budget for a huge blockbuster that is definitely as of epic proportions as After Earth, for instance, which was terrible, and half the budget.
No,
so,
I think After Earth had a pretty low budget too.
I thought it was a 215. Am I wrong?
I thought After Earth was actually done kind of on the cheap as well.
Was it? I can look it up. But anyway, by today's Hollywood blockbuster standards, it's a rather small budget. a lot of the droids, Matt Damon's character, Max, he works in this factory that creates these droids for the military/police force. And those are all CG. And I thought the lighting and the texture all made them look very lifelike. And they're in a lot of the movie. So the way those blended in were great. I thought the shuttles, the spaceships and the shuttles, and Elysium, the design of Elysium, which is the space station, which the 1% of all traveled to, and they all live there in their paradise. Just the design of it was fantastic.
Do they actually say in the film that it's the 1%?
No.
Or is that just something we've been saying because
they just say the very wealthy.
Okay. I was just couldn't remember if they actually used that terminology.
I think that's anybody that's seen it who's living in the current state of things no.
Absolutely. I just didn't know if they actually spelled it out. I didn't remember them actually saying 1%, but Kevin's been saying it. And honestly, I'm not calling you out. I've seen a lot of other reviews and stories refer to the population of Elysium as the 1%.
The 1%.
To where I was starting to question if it was actually in the movie and I missed it.
So I think they call them the privileged?
Something
like that.
They call them the fancy pants.
The fancy pants
That's
with their sweet little space station up in the space.
Thinking you're so hot.
So that's one of my points as far as, the quote unquote heavy-handedness. I mean, they didn't come right out and say, oh, it's the 1% and spoon feed it to you. I felt that the movie, take the politics out of it. I thought that it was a good enough reason for the plot to work and to set everything into motion. I thought it was just a good sci-fi movie if you take out that element. I didn't feel like they were shoving it down our throats. But yeah, that's just me. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great movie.
Okay, next.
Well, I enjoyed the movie as well, but unlike Kevin, I actually think they pretty much hit you over the head with the morality of the haves and the have-nots. I mean, they literally split it between two worlds, so it cannot be any more obvious.
They hit you over the head so hard, I thought they were going to have to pay for the rights to Maxwell's Silver Hammer by the Beatles.
And it shows, in early on in the movie, it shows these 3 shuttles full of desperate people who are trying to get to Elysium so they can take advantage of these magical beds that somehow heal you of, cancer or broken bones or a completely disfigured face in the case of what's his name, Sharlto Copley's character.
A destroyed face.
Yeah, it was pretty much mangled. But I really enjoyed it. I liked District 9. I had no idea what to expect going into that, but I really enjoyed it. And I went in with the expectations this would be more of the same, and I was not disappointed at all in terms of the action. I thought the visuals were terrific. At times, it's almost like you're watching a video game. If anyone's played Mass Effect, that universe, there are a lot of reminders of that universe, and I thought Sharlto Copley took the limelight from Matt Damon. I thought his performance pretty much blew Matt Damon's out of the way. I mean, it's not like an Oscar-winning performance, but I thought it was pretty cool to see him as a bad guy, whereas in District 9, he was a protagonist, and then was the A-Team. He's one of the good guys. So, excuse me, my voice just cracked.
Steve just hit puberty.
It's brutal.
He's the Peter Brady of our Brady Bunch.
But yeah, I did enjoy it, other than the heavy-handed.
Well, and let me just say real quick before Joe, I don't want you to think I'm saying that it's not obvious or I was confused by the allegory they were presenting, but I didn't feel like one of those movies like when I saw Green Zone starring Matt Damon by Paul Greengrass.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a political, left-wing movie, and
I think it's even more heavy-handed than that movie because there is no allegory to it. It is just Bush is bad. We're in Iraq.
But my point is, I didn't feel like I was being preached to. Like in that movie, I'm watching it, and again, I don't care what side you're on. If they have a different opinion than me, if that's the movie they're making, that's fine. But I don't want to sit through a preachy movie where they're just shoving this down your throat and over and over and over again. So in this movie, I understood what points they were trying to make, but I was extremely entertained by the story and the characters and the special effects. I mean, I was in it, and I never felt like, oh, they're making that 99% argument again. Oh, they're telling us to take on universal healthcare. Like, it was there, but I didn't feel disrupted in my film-going experience by it.
There we go. I also enjoyed it. Like I've stated on a previous podcast, anybody that knows me knows that my family was blue collar. I'm blue collar. So technically I am part of the 99%, which I think all of us in this room are, unless somebody's not telling me something.
Yeah, buddy, you're not alone there.
Can I just say something, though? If you think about it on a global scale, I read some statistic, whereas if you make $35,000 or more a year, you are in the 1% of the world.
Then I am not in the 1% of the world. Bastard.
Maybe like the 3 or 4%?
Yeah, give or take. Yeah. So to me,
but that's a good point that people forget, that it's like if you're gonna be poor, this is the country to be
Yeah,
poor.
right.
Like our poor get to have air conditioning and televisions and iPhones, where
Computers.
other poor, the poor in other countries get like flies on their eyes.
I've seen those commercials.
Yeah.
With that fat Jesus or the fat man.
That was Sally Struthers.
Oh,
No, I'm just she has let herself go,
She a little bit.
admittedly, with the beard.
so to me, this film hits a little bit closer to home because I do believe that we as a people need to start coming together in certain aspects of our society. To me, this movie struck a personal chord with me, so it brought me into the movie. There's a couple scenes, like there's the scene with is it Frey? Is that the girl? Is that the woman's name?
Yeah.
Where her daughter is sick, and there's just like Matt Damon can't help her. It choked me up a little bit because I know that I would do anything I could to protect my daughter or to keep my daughter healthy. So that it's like when you can bring me into a movie like that, like when I become emotionally invested, I start to enjoy it more. And that's kind of what this did. And I think there are some of the effects in here that are nothing short of amazing. Like that whole scene where the ship crashes into Elysium, to me looks like it's a model. Like this, to me, it looked like it was a model ship crashing into a model city.
Not special effects.
Not special effects. Like if that was their intention, well done.
It was
looked
actually
amazing.
It was actually a real ship crashing into the real Elysium.
Really?
This is based on a true story.
Based on a true story?
This is the actual
You did a
footage
little
I
show-
found.
So there is an Elysium?
If you did a little show prep, you would
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, we just don't tell you. They don't tell you there's an Elysium because they don't want you.
They don't want you to go there.
And
Yeah.
get all Matt Damon on their ass.
Get all put on an exosuit and
Yeah.
start whipping some ass. But I thought some of the effects in this were nothing short of amazing.
Okay, and now I will tell you why you're wrong. No, it's a great looking movie. I will not begrudge it that. And although I will say, for all the extra money, I don't know that I felt that it looked appreciably better than District 9. Except I guess they just did more things. But
Yeah.
what they did,
Bigger cast.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, you actually had A-list actors. in
right. Yeah,
this.
you had actual name
and it was a
actor.
little bit bigger scope than District 9 that was focused to one area. You've got space, but right.
Yeah, but I thought, considering what he had to work with, it made me even more impressed by District 9, and I was already impressed by District 9. I mean, I was a fan. I felt this movie was very derivative of District 9. I felt like it hit a lot of the same beats, and it starts with, it does the whole thing about it's a depressed socioeconomic land of slums that we're starting in, and then you have this guy who's fighting this corrupt system, and he's even kind of morphing into a monster, only this time he brings it on himself by putting on the exoskeleton. But it's just like, I just kind of felt like it was hitting a lot of the same beats for his second film.
Yeah.
If Neill Blomkamp is the band Boston, this is Don't Look Back.
Oh.
It's, there are some things it does right, but there's a lot of retreads, I felt. And so, as for the message, I felt it was very heavy-handed. I thought that, I really felt like they cheated. I felt like they set themselves up to win the argument by creating some fake stuff or rigging the argument, especially with these med pods.
Into the 99%'s favor? Or the have-nots favor, I guess.
Yeah, into the 99. We can use that terminology. That's fine. But yeah, I felt like they rigged the argument. Basically, I left that movie thinking Elysium was Latin for straw man. Like, I felt like they were really kind of cheating. But let's back up and let's start with the film at the beginning and kind of just, because it does a lot of different and interesting things. I just think, like I said, sometimes it kind of plays fast and loose with its fairness. And so I found this article that was really interesting, and it kind of helps us walk through some of the stuff that it does, and it's from Discovery News, and it kind of talks about things that are in the movie, but it also talks about like how it would work in the real world, and like, could this stuff actually happen? I don't mean that in a way to call the film out, because it's a science fiction movie. It can do whatever it wants. I just thought it was interesting, like how much of this stuff they're saying could conceivably happen. And so the movie starts with the opening scenes of Elysium. Earth has been ravaged by pollution and overpopulation, and this says that according to the numbers, a recent study by the United Nations says that the world population from 2000 to 2050 is expected to grow by 47%, which would take us from 6.1 billion to 8.9 billion. And then projections past that get a little dicey, but one number crunching scenario from the study says that, and this is a quote, an almost unimaginable world population of 134 trillion by 2300.
Jesus.
So that's a real thing. Like, that's, like, I'm not just complaining about the movie. I enjoyed the setting. I liked what they were trying to accomplish. I just think that they start to play a little fast and loose. I liked Elysium itself. I thought that was great looking.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin found a thing that you posted too, if you want to talk about it, that's based on a real thing, or not a real thing that's occurred.
A real concept.
A real concept that NASA has been working on.
The Stanford Taurus is the name of the design.
Yeah. So NASA designed this concept of what they call Elysium in this movie. And the 1975 artwork for this concept, they captured it almost perfectly,
almost
to a
identically.
T. I mean, because when I saw it, when I saw the movie before doing some research on it, I was not familiar with the Stanford Taurus, and I went back and did the research on it and saw the picture and everything. And in the movie, I thought, wow, they designed this amazing thing, and it is. And I'm not taking anything away from that, but I thought they invented this, what Elysium is, this space station with this kind of open air thing. The atmosphere is all contained, but it's just kind of open and floating in space. And so this drawing that they did in 1975, I mean, it is like spot on perfect the way that they converted that drawing into a, what looks like a real thing. So it's really neat to check out. I think if you look at the review on reviewstl.com, you can click the link on Stanford Taurus, and it will talk about the history and the design and the concept.
Yeah, and this says that the orbital structure of Elysium is a rotating Taurus-style station, and it uses centrifugal force to produce artificial gravity, and it keeps the residents and atmosphere from flying off into space. And the design is based in part, as you mentioned, on the Stanford Taurus model, which was developed by NASA in the 70s using a ring and spoke system, and then it uses mirrors to redirect sunlight. And I didn't know any of that, and I was really kind of excited to find that out because honestly, my first take on the image of Elysium was, well, it's cool looking, but that doesn't make any sense. So, like, I was kind of, and again, I was willing to give it a pass because it's science fiction, and who knows what makes sense. Clearly, based on this information, I don't.
It's science. It's science.
They actually went so far as to discuss how it would be implemented in terms of gathering the materials. Supposedly, like, all the materials, most of them would come from, like, capturing, like, asteroids and meteors or whatever, and harvesting the minerals from there, and then taking minerals from the moon, and then basically anything that they had to get from Earth would be projected by basically, it's called a mass catcher, where it would just launch all this material into space, and they would catch it at the space station and just keep building it.
Huh.
I think that's really neat that they didn't just, make up some crazy thing that could never happen. The fact that they based it on a concept like that, I really give them a lot of props for doing that.
Absolutely, I do too. I enjoyed that part immensely. And I thought this was interesting. The guns that they use in this, the rail guns, that's a real thing.
Yep,
I didn't know that. So rail guns, they work by using magnets as opposed to internal explosions, and they accelerate projectiles at speeds of up to Mach 7.
Did you see the movie Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
If I did, I blocked it out.
Yeah, the Navy is actually working on putting railguns on their ships. They have like a radius of like 21 miles or something.
Yeah, that's what this says. It says the railgun has been around for a while as an experimental technology, but for now they're too big and require too much energy to be a practical field weapon. And the U.S. Navy recently test-fired a prototype railgun and announced that the military contractor Raytheon had been awarded the contract. So if you're looking to invest.
They didn't give that one to Stark Industries?
No, not yet. Well, I think Raytheon is a subsidiary of
He's gotten away
Stark.
from making weapons, Kevin.
Okay.
He wants to help the world, not destroy it.
The idea of the railgun, though, they actually give you like designs on how to make your own like rudimentary one at home, where you basically line a bunch of magnets along like a pipe and just launch a marble. And
really?
Yeah.
So here's where the film starts to get a little dicey, scientifically speaking. And again, that's fine. It's science fiction for a reason.
Is Tommy Fun spoiler back?
Let's say, yeah. Yes, he is. Max and his enemies employ a cybernetic system that lets them plug weapons directly into their brains and bodies. And the film's villain, Kruger, played by Sharlto Copley. God, that's hard to say. I like
Gesundheit.
Yeah. He has multiple implants on his arms and face that serve as ports for his weapons. And it says that the closest we've gotten to this so far is the helmet mount display technology that augments eyesights for pilots and soldiers. But this is the part where I started to get, like, more from a plot-driven standpoint, is Matt Damon's character, who has a name, but I forget it. And,
Max.
Okay, Max. Max, he's going to go up to Elysium, and so he uses these ports to download all this information into his head, and then he's going to crash. He's going to storm the Bastille, and he's going to upload this information. And so I guess apparently it's a magic code, and whoever has this code gets to be president. It's like Excalibur for
Yeah, I think the premise
data.
is
like that did not make a lick of like why would any government even write a code like that?
Well, that was my biggest argument. So I mean, I really enjoyed the movie, but that part of the plot to me didn't make sense. So you've got this whole government up on space, and because the guy that designed their programming, that is the same guy that owns the company Max works for, that's the connection there. He created their defense software or whatnot, and so he can just rewrite the president. And because that's rewritten in the code, the new president is
all of a sudden
named.
Jodie Foster is president.
Yeah, so It the premise is a little goofy.
That was
sure.
just absolutely ridiculous, especially for a movie that's wanting to be smart. Like if it's Total Recall, the original, not the but I mean that was silly. So when it had these premises, and then you're like, well, wait a second, like, well, it was never meant, but this wants to be like a smart, socio-political, conscious, aware kind of movie, and so I just expect it to do something smarter than that, because that just made no sense, especially when like by the end of the movie you have the main villain Kruger, the Sharlto.
Just call him Kruger.
Sharlto
Copley. I'm just going to point to somebody and they'll have to say it for me. By the end of the movie, like this guy who had just been some random thug previously that they had fired him, and all of a sudden they bring him back, and now he's like, oh, if I get that code, I get to be president. Like it's some sort of political game of hot potato.
Did you feel like he went crazier? So like they say he's crazy to begin with, right?
Right.
And then he takes a grenade to the face.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they reconstruct his face in the little healing bed thing.
I think that definitely made him
like
go
he went
mad.
crazy? Like
yeah.
I felt like
when they reconstructed him, I
he
think
went
that,
even crazier than before, because then he went on that rampage where he put on the exosuit.
I mean, you could pin it on that, but at the same time, then that goes against everything they've told you about these med pods up till then, which is that they're these perfect thing.
Right. Well, I mean, they fix your cancer and they fix your legs and things like that, but his head was blown off, so maybe in the reconstruction of such a huge...
Something was wrong.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'm just saying that completely undermines everything we've been told about these things up till then.
But I do think it was kind of crazy. As soon as he got fired, remember he was barbecuing, and as soon as he got fired, he went nuts. He flipped the barbecue thing over and was yelling at the top of his lungs.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Waste of meat.
But the guy definitely...
beers at people.
He had a screw loose already, so it may not have been blamed on that, but I did feel him ramp up the craziness.
I think they said that, like he was, there's rape and murder and all kinds of stuff, and they kind of hinted that when he kidnaps Frey, like he's messing with her and just getting very creepy. Then he gets his face blown off, literally like half of his face was gone, and then they reconstruct him, and then he went even crazier.
And wasn't that the most insane thing, the fact they brought him back? Because you thought for sure, okay, so Matt Damon is fighting with the guys. He's got a grenade that the pin's off, and he's holding down the clamp on it, and he's like, I will blow this thing up unless you take me to Elysium, because he's got to get cured, and he's got to save the little girl and all that stuff. And so they all tumble around in a fight, and the grenade goes off right in his face, and you're like, whoa, it was a pretty cool scene. And you're just like, oh, well, Sharlto Copley's dead. Like, that's it, right?
Well, that's something that made no sense to me, because the dude, like you said, he takes a grenade to the face.
I mean, that's fatal.
There is a hole in his face where his face used to be. His head is missing. It is the opposite of head. It is unhead, right? There is so little head that it would remind most men of being married. That's how little head there is.
I was hoping we were going that far, and
then they put him in the machine, and I even remember the screen on the med pod says brain activity normal, and I'm like, there's not a brain to be active. Like you can read the newspaper through this guy's face.
Well, to be fair, there was no hole in the back or top of the head. I mean, his face was blown off the top where his brain would be. I mean, it was not missing. The cavity was just the face. It was. But I'm just saying. To be technical, the brain was not touched. I mean, they're not so stupid. Neill Blomkamp, they're not going to blow up the brain and then have the brain. I mean, I really was looking for it, and the face was blown off. You'd think he was dead, but the brain wasn't actually touched. So. Now how they kept him alive long enough for the brain not to die?
The brain stem.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's the part that doesn't make sense. But in a world where somehow the brain can be alive with their technology, whatever it was, they didn't actually blow up or remove the brain. So that's
but let's address these med pods. Let's first go to see what Discovery News has to say about these med pods, and it says that they're fully automated. The device looks like a full body MRI scanner, think a tanning bed.
Yeah,
but for your body,
for your whole
health.
body.
but it can diagnose health and all injuries and heal all injuries and disease, making the residents of Elysium virtually immortal. This is where I'll have a problem. I don't have a problem with the existence of the MedPods within the film. Like, it's their world; they can create what they want. But once you create these things, I want you to use them fairly. That's like right? So, real world. In the real world, medical nanotechnology is a growing field of study with billions of dollars in public and private funding over the last decade. No surprise, since nanotechnology has a potential application in virtually every field of medicine. The medical miracles depicted in the film, one character has his face literally rebuilt, suggest a hyper-advanced form of molecular nanotechnology in which tissue is repaired or replaced at the atomic level. So, here's my thing with the MedPods, and this is where I think they start to like set up straw man arguments and really play fast and loose with stuff, or unfairly, I should say, is that they have these things that can heal anyone at any time of virtually, as we see, anything.
Right.
Okay. First off, just a little side note: Jodie Foster gets a paper cut to the neck, and they're like, "Well, she's dead." Like, they don't even try. Like, I get that she's with people that probably don't care about her, but at the same time, that person is a nurse who's theoretically still taken some sort of oath to always try to save
Well,
people.
I guess that's true. She tries to save her, and then
she
Jodie
says
Foster
no.
says stop.
Yeah, but
Right, and there were no MedPods on the ship
Where
or
she-
whatever
where
they
they
were.
were.
They're in the households of Elysium, so Matt Damon couldn't even cure himself there. Or
No,
else
they
we
had MedPod. They were in like a storage room. Like
why did she run the little girl to a house instead of using the MedPod there? Then?
That's a good question.
Because there weren't MedPods.
Yeah, they
there.
were. Because how did they fix Kruger's face?
Is that the same?
Yeah, it was a MedPod.
Was it the same thing?
Yeah.
So that doesn't make. I was thinking they sent her to a household to use the MedPod, so there weren't MedPods there. Because if there were, Matt Damon would have been alive,
Right.
and the movie doesn't end that way. Little girl cured MedPod, and why wouldn't they have a MedPod? I'm not saying I can explain that, but I did not see one there. I'm wondering if the bay that Kruger was fixed on, was a different. It didn't look like the home MedPod.
First off, it makes no sense that there wouldn't be a MedPod on
Right,
the ship.
exactly.
Like that. Like where I work, we have defibrillators. Like that's like it's like how often are we going to need those? And I work at a place that's not dangerous. It's not inherent. I mean, not to say there can't be accidents, but like I work in an office. Like
Right.
it's not inherently a risky place.
where the president meets, and I mean, why
Right.
wouldn't you?
You're
No,
gonna-
I get you.
yeah.
I don't get why there wasn't one there, but I didn't see one. For
Right.
whatever,
Well, they have to. I mean, so Jodie Foster is the Minister of Defense. I guess is who she is.
Secretary of Defense.
There we go.
I believe she was Michelle Bachmann. Go on.
I think that was the administrative assistant of defense. Steve,
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Because she's a woman.
The assistant
woman?
to the assistant to the. So she goes and sees Kruger after he's fixed, and then she goes down and sees Matt Damon. So there has to be a MedPod there because they fixed Kruger's face.
I'm just
There's a
questioning
there's a
whether
med,
or not that's a MedPod.
there's a well,
device
how else
that
would he
fixed
fix
him.
his face?
Well, I mean, the
Magic.
interface. I mean, it just looked different.
Science.
It looked differently to me. That's all. But
Here's the thing. This is where it strains credulity for me. Is that every home has one of these things. I mean, they hand these things out like candy corn, but they don't have one on the ship.
right.
No,
That makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean that makes no sense. But these things can cure anyone of anything in seconds. I mean, like it cured her of leukemia in like 4 seconds, right? Like that's not hyperbole. I did the math on that properly, correct?
Yes.
So in order for this world to work logically, I have to believe that every rich person is just a complete and utter a-hole. Every single one of them said, "We're going to leave this planet and we're going to take the medicine with us. We have a magic wand." And there's not one person, there's not one Warren Buffett, there's not one Bill Gates, there's not one person that says, maybe we could leave one behind. Maybe just one. Like, how about one house doesn't have one and he can share with his neighbor and we'll leave one behind? Or how about we make an extra? And because we see further in the film, right, that they have extras. They have tons of extras.
Right.
Because Matt Damon unleashes them on Earth and he sends them back, right? And so it from my standpoint, like, and that's where I start to feel like it gets really heavy-handed, because its whole metaphor and allegory is about universal health care and also about illegal immigration, because basically the Earthlings have been declared illegal immigrants to
Elysium.
and so all the really good stuff's on Elysium, and everyone's stuck on Earth. And so so you have this kind of the allegory gets really like weak in that you have this device that can cure anyone of anything and is cheap to manufacture apparently and costs nothing to operate and can cure people in seconds, and no one says let's help.
Now that you've said that, that's a very good point. I think there are people who are part of the 1% who are not assholes.
Right. I mean, it's just statistically speaking, that just makes no sense.
They made a blanket statement about everybody in Elysium that they're these super conservative. This is our stuff. We're not going to give it to any of them.
Right.
That's a valid point.
And then Matt Damon, he crashes the system and he downloads this information from his head, and apparently clicking and dragging on a thumb drive when it's in your head is lethal. I still don't understand why that killed him.
Well, so you
can put all the information in his head, but if you take it out, it kills him.
No, I mean that they do spell that part out. So William Fichtner is the head of the company that Matt Damon works for, and he is the one that they target to rob, basically, because he's rich. He has a space shuttle that can get into Elysium. And he also happens to be writing this code because he created the whole defense system for Elysium. That's what sets this whole plot in motion. So when he's coding it, they show him putting the code for the president of Elysium into the computer, and before he downloads it to his head, he sets up a defense. He is the guy that created all this defense stuff, so it's believable.
It's like a firewall, kind of.
Yeah, he sets up a defense so that if anyone tries to hijack it, it will be fatal to them. And so he obviously is carrying this, but when he downloads it to Elysium, he created it. He knows how to get away from the protection, the firewall, so to speak, but no one else does. He wrote the code and only him, and it died with him, whatever knowledge to unlock it. So when Matt Damon downloads it, that defense protocol kicks in, and just like they showed us earlier, I mean, it's fatal. That's just how it was programmed. It's a defense.
I still, okay, but...
I mean, in their world, they invented it, and they showed us.
But then on the flip side of that, though, we still live in a world where there's med pods in every house, and, like, they don't even try. They're just like, well, what are you going to do? You know, and so then he unleashes he decides he's going to save Earth. And now you can't see because it's a podcast. I'm putting air quotes around the word save, right? He's going to save Earth. So here's what he's going to do. He goes to the computer and he gets to his typing, and he's like, we can't send in, we can send these med pods to Earth. Oh, we can't because all of Earth has been declared illegal. Oh, what's this? There's a drop-down menu where I can go and change them from illegal to legal.
You could turn everybody into
citizens. Just one click. I can just declare everyone on Earth a legal alien. Like, really? Like, they wouldn't even write that. If these people are that big of douches, their drop-down menu isn't going to have declare everyone legal. That's just not going to be a thing.
We have this one fail-safe where, please God, don't click it, or else we're screwed.
Right. To be fair, so let me just provide you the other side of the argument. So the guy that's helping him, it's
Spider.
Which actor was that? Wagner Mora.
That's what everyone says, Spider.
Right. So
yes, that's how reading works.
Wow. So the way Matt Damon is even able to go on this whole mission and the way he gets his exoskeleton is from Spider, who Matt Damon used to work for, and he got out of the life of being a criminal. So he comes to him, though, as the last resort and says, I will do any job for you want. Just get me a one-way ticket to Elysium, let me cure myself, and I'm in your debt, I'll work for you, whatever. So Spider is this huge computer hacker. He is the guy on Earth. He's the Resistance. Mm-hmm. He is the John Connor, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this is the guy operating...
Not as cool as John Connor, but...
This guy is operating everything down there. So he's this elite hacker. I mean, we're shown that he's doing all the computer stuff. He's got surveillance. He's able to recode things. He is the hacker in this group. So when they get to Elysium, Spider is there with his computer. He's hacking their systems. He's opening doors. He's closing things. I mean, he's set
like
up as
Jor-El.
Well, he actually had computers, but so he's this elite hacker. So it's not out of. I mean, I'm just thinking it's not preposterous that he is able to, once the program's downloaded, he's this elite hacker they've set him up to be. He went and rewrote the code.
I see what you're saying.
And turned all people into citizens.
He was able to take a piece of that code, change it to what he
hacked
needed
it. He was a hacker. I mean,
they
set him up the whole time as this hacker. He couldn't have done any of the other things he did. They can stamp imprints on people. They can burn in citizenship
citizenships,
codes. That's all in this world, at least. I mean, that's what they're setting him up to do. He can completely change identities and things like that. He gets there and he just hacks the code. That's as simple as it is. It's not just a simple drop down. I mean, he's the person. We've seen him the whole time.
Right.
That's my take on it.
Okay, now the next thing. This to me you can't talk your way out of this because it's just
try me.
it's
We'll
just
find
the
a way,
reality
Tom.
of the situation. So this complete planet of douchebags, the planet of Douchium, has he says so they hack in and they create a drop down menu. Okay, let's say that this is how that occurred. They hack in, they create a drop down menu that then triggers hundreds of ships packed to the brim with med pods, unused med pods. They're just sitting on ships waiting to be sent to Earth.
Well, those were medical ships. They had the cross on them. I mean, that was
To go to where?
They said
They're already
EMS.
on Elysium.
right. But if
Everybody has a med pod.
think about it, you're on a huge floating space station where the richest people, everyone in power, the president, these people are there. If for some reason the space station there's an explosion, if something goes wrong, I mean, it was their hospital ship. I don't
your
think
med
that's.
pod breaks.
I mean, it's a hospital. It was an
no.
ambulance. It was an oversized ambulance spaceship.
But then they didn't have a med pod at the ready for Jodie Foster or Matt Damon.
The fact there weren't
so
med
we're
pods
saying that
there
they have lots of med pods, but they don't have lots of med
The only
pods.
I think,
But even then, that's not my biggest point. So
Right.
they send
The
all
ambulance.
these med pods to Earth,
Right.
and overpopulated Earth.
It's gonna take. There's gonna be some long lines at the med
An
pods.
We got some
overpopulated
problems.
Earth has essentially just been granted immortality, and this movie wants us to perceive that as a happy ending, not as the chaos and resource depleting horror that it's going to become.
There's no natural selection going on there.
do you
with
think
med
maybe
pods.
that's a double message?
No, you know what? If the movie addressed it, then I would say yes. Like if it was bittersweet, then I would say yes. But they're like, "Yay, we're sending all these med pods to Earth." First off, there will be rape and killing and pillaging as people try to get to these med pods because they don't have any sort of system in place to say, okay, to do some sort of triage to decide who should get to the med pod first. They just sent med pods. From what we've seen of Earth, from what we've seen of this slum-ridden, overpopulated, crime-infested planet, do you really think they're going to stand in line orderly?
Oh, it would be chaos.
And wait for these med pods. So
I seriously doubt that those little girls that they were throwing in there first were going to be the first ones to get in that
correct.
med pod.
And so that's going to be chaos. So that is the equivalent of just standing on top of a building and throwing out fistfuls of $100 bills. You're going to create pandemonium. One, you've just created a major problem. Two, let's say for the sake of argument, the medical professionals step in because they still have hospitals and stuff, and they step in and say, no, we're going to take over these med pods. We're going to create a triage system. We're going to decide who should get first access because we can treat people quickly. It only takes 4 or 5 seconds, right? So you can, let's say in and out, you can get, say, 3 people a minute through these machines. And they have tons of them now.
And what I'm worried about is it seemed like the whole police force is ran by Elysium. Now Elysium's overridden. Who controls those robots that police the area?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a huge problem because that's their police, is the robots.
So let's say everybody orderly gets their medicine, their med pod, and now they're all basically cured. So now you have an overpopulated world where people are essentially immortal.
But I don't think the movie necessarily stops aging.
That's what I was
people
gonna
are
say.
still aging on Elysium.
No, because there's a line in the movie where they say people can live that people have lived for 200 or 300 years. Like
I don't think so.
No,
See,
I remember they talk about but even if they're not immortal, they're going to live infinitely longer than you've just probably doubled people's life expectancy.
because I was gonna say so in the movie they allude to, because they can cure anything, it seems like they may be alluding to immortality, but they never come out and say no one ever dies. So I was gonna say,
but if they're not immortal, I think we can say that they're damn close and their life expectancy has greatly increased.
Well, if you look at the life expectancy of people in the real world, I mean, people are living now in 2013 till they're like 100 and what
10, 100. You know, the oldest people are
Really?
like 100. Yeah, there's 109,
I was like
100.
I think the oldest living person is like 116.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's think about that. So if in 2013 the oldest living person is 116, you take away, like you're saying,
Right.
disease and cancer and everything. What's the life expectancy? I mean, it could very well be 200 years.
And from a population standpoint, don't forget that not only are you extending the lives of everyone who's alive, but you've also, like her daughter that
Right.
would have died from leukemia, that would have been one less mouth to feed. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick.
No,
but I'm
no,
just saying,
I hear what you're saying.
realistically, that would have been one less mouth to feed. You've completely stopped that. There is no infant mortality. There is no childhood sickness or every person that is born will be born and will live to, I think you can safely say,
200.
at least 100 years old, but probably 200
Right.
years old.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what you've just, and I hate to say this when you're talking about medicine and saving people, but that's what you've just inflicted on an overpopulated planet. So what now? Like, what happens now? And if the movie had addressed that, if the movie had somebody say, okay, well, here's what you just did. Like, yay, we're going to save people, so that's good. I mean, everybody, when you think about it like that, like, well, everybody wants to be the guy to get the medicine, but if everybody else gets the medicine, it creates a whole new host of problems, which honestly is what your 1% was already aware of, and that's why they left. That's why they said, we're going to take care of our own, and we're going to go up here, and we'll be okay, because we know if everybody has this, it's going to suck, and it's going to get real ugly real fast. Not saying it's right. I'm not, but I'm just saying, like, that's the flip side of the equation that the movie never gives you. It just says, yay medicine, and open borders, and
yay people.
yeah, and it's like, so that sounds real good until you actually try to put it in practice. And as soon as the movie puts it into practice, as soon as it gets its way and says eternal life for everybody, for lack of a better term, it goes, and somebody goes, well, what now? Credits. And so that's why I say I think the movie is really heavy-handed and plays fast and loose, and it doesn't make a fair argument.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just speculation, but I'm guessing to say, like, if Blomkamp continued it, maybe there's a way to expand that nanotechnology from beyond the medical field. What if you can actually create something that would help reverse a pollution issue, break down those materials that people are throwing away, turn them into something productive? What if you can create something that'll terraform other planets if we ever decide to, do something on Mars?
Hang on, Joe has to say something.
They're terraforming.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, who's to say that you can't just take that magical technology, which is basically restructuring atoms, and do that on a planet side?
And I'm not saying you can't, but at that point, I'm writing their screenplay for them, because that's not on the screen. And everything I've seen up to that point, because if that's possible, then then you're saying something even worse about the citizens of Elysium. You're saying that
they didn't fix the problem.
That this is easily fixable.
They have the ability to fix the problem. They didn't do it.
It's easily fixable, and they just said screw it. And so at that point, I almost feel like that makes my argument even stronger in terms of how it's kind of a straw man argument, because now you're saying that, oh, you send on a couple of these things and some technology, and they could clean up the whole place in a week, but let's not.
I've seen Wall-E. They can do it.
Right.
So do they ever give the motive for, I mean, I know in the beginning they obviously set it up, this, let's call them the 1%, for lack of a better term. They've gone to Elysium. They give you a little intro, but they don't really give you a lot of background on why they made the decisions they did. They don't really ever tell you that.
No,
motives behind it.
You really get no insight as to who even lives on the planet, because the only people you see are political figures. So you don't get any insight as to who was chosen to go to this world.
Just the wealthiest.
That's what it looked like. I think.
But was it just wealthy? Because then that raises another question. Like, who teaches their kids? Who cuts their grass? Who does? You know what I mean? Like, who bags the groceries? Who does?
Probably the robots.
Yeah, potentially.
But the impression that I got is that it was the most, the political, the people in power, and the wealthiest, the heads of corporations, things of that nature, the people who were up on Elysium, of course, their families. But that's the impression that I got, and I mean, they never give you the reason why, but I think that they don't really need to, in my opinion. I think that they've kind of just set it up where, like, the rich and powerful have bailed and just said, I'm tired of dealing with giving handouts, or they may not have said that. I guess the handout thing, I kind of may have put my own spin on that.
Well, clearly they don't like handouts if they didn't leave one of those med pods.
Those med pods, yeah.
The
not leave
reason
those med pods.
the reason I ask, and I mean I pretty much knew the answer, I didn't remember them setting it up, is because again, I can't write their screenplay for them, but if they would have explained something like Earth, they lack a certain sort of resource, the med bays couldn't operate on Earth, they can on these spaceships, but maybe they couldn't leave them there, or there was a lack of resources, so only the rich could have them because there wasn't enough to go around and they could afford the technology. Maybe they're so expensive that they couldn't just, I mean, I'm just trying to say that there could be reasons that they did it.
And that's where I feel like it's lazy, because there could have been a reason, right? Like they could have created some sort of a plot device for
just a simple explanation,
right,
that made you go, oh, that's why they didn't.
Because from what I can see, that these things take the med pods, the things being the med pods, utilize almost zero resources. Because I would think that on this ship up there, that resources are at a premium, and that if that's the case, these wouldn't be in every home. And I mean, I got the impression that people used them almost every day, like taking a shower. You get up, you hop in your med pod, and then you're off to work. So that leads me to believe that they require virtually no energy to operate, because they couldn't put one in every home.
Unless, again, I know it's crazy, but unless they run on some resource that's so limited that they took it to space with them because it couldn't support 7, 10, 100 billion people. They took it to Elysium. The wealthiest got it. They have, who knows, 1,000-year supply until they figure something else out. I'm just saying that could be a situation.
That could be, but then you're back to, you're saying something even worse about them again, because you're saying that it's so limited that they took a small group of people and then said, but you guys can use it. Not only can you guys use it, but you guys can use it every day, and we'll put one in every home.
But who would, if that did happen, if someone discovered some resource that's limited like that, I mean, who would be the people that would get it? The people with the money and the power that control everything. I mean, it's not beyond reason to think that could happen.
But my point is that if I had something like that, and that they were like, hey, you can have this and you can use it every day for 4 people, I think I would say, okay, if I use it every day for 4 people, I could use it every other day for 8 people.
You know what I
mean? Like, you don't need it every day.
There was that weird scene where like the gal was walking in from her pool and she just kind of laid down and she was like, "Man, I feel like I might have cancer." And she went ahead and laid down. They're like, "Oh yeah, you do have cancer. We're gonna go ahead and take that out for you."
They did?
Yeah. That's what was running in my head, where she just laid down like a tanning bed.
Right, and
they're like, "Oh, by the way, you have cancer."
Yeah, and that's why I was saying I feel like it's something that people use almost every day.
Yeah,
and they just hop in
agree.
like, oh, better safe than sorry. Like,
take a look.
Like, it's like a science fiction medical equivalent of a Flintstone vitamin. Just take one every day.
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't think they don't use it every day. They get scanned every day, and if there's a problem, it fixes it. I mean, it scans them.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, they scan it every day.
And that makes a modicum of more sense. But still, like, if it's a medical device that they've unleashed on the public, you don't even need a doctor to operate that thing, right?
It runs on Energon cubes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you knew that or not.
But
Transformers roll out.
But you don't even need a physician, you don't even need a trained personnel to operate it. You just hop in and press a button.
Yeah, press a button, it scans and does
so
its thing.
that to me says that it's that it's very simple to use. It doesn't require a lot of energy, or they wouldn't put one in every home. You'd have maybe one on every street corner, and there'd be a licensed technician, and they'd go in and they'd give you a standard physical, and they say, oh, that does seem weird, and they'd run a test, and then they'd say, oh, it appears you have diabetes according to this blood test. Why don't we go ahead and put you in the med pod? But that's not what they're doing. They're just like, here, hop in when you because you know how people are about medicine. So just because that lady didn't use it every day, if it's in everybody's home, you know that there are people that every day are like, better safe than sorry.
I'm just going to take a look real quick.
Yeah, so we can agree. I mean, they should have addressed a little bit more motive behind why they went to Elysium with this technology, how they were the only ones that used it, and how maybe they weren't just rich assholes. But they should have explained it. That would have fixed a lot of problems.
And so my point when I say I feel like they're kind of cheating by setting up a straw man argument is, I'm not opposed to giving to people having access to health care like that. That's not my political position, is that people shouldn't be allowed to go to doctors. Like, that's but they've basically, what they've established in this film is a magic wand, and they've basically said healthcare is a magic wand, and why aren't you assholes giving it to everybody? And healthcare isn't a magic wand. There are a lot of hard choices that come with that field and that industry, and how those resources are allocated, and the fact that in their allegory, they've simplified medicine to that degree and then said, you're a jerk if you're against giving this out, that's where I feel like it becomes a straw man argument. And that's what made me feel like their message was so heavy-handed. And it really turned me off of the whole film because it was so simplistic. To me, it was so simplistic as to be insulting. And I don't mind that their film has a political point of view or that incorporates politics, but I wish it would have played a little bit more fair. And I wish there would have been somebody that said, well, wait, if you heal everyone, if nobody ever dies, then where are we going to park?
We're creating a bigger problem.
You know?
Well, that's Elysium too, Tom. The struggle for resources.
They'll explain why he doesn't kill. Oh no, wait, we're talking about Elysium now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, that's Elysium. I think that was a great conversation, though. I think that was, and that's the kind of conversation that you can't have when you're protecting major plot points for film. So that I think this really benefited the film and benefited our discussion, the nature of our show, Real Spoilers.
We have value.
Yes. So
by the way, Matt Damon dies.
Yeah, and Matt Damon.
There's your spoiler.
But
if you didn't see that coming from 100 miles away, I mean, he's the hero.
He has to
he's
die.
the anti-hero hero. I mean, he's this ex-con, but he's definitely our protagonist.
He's an ex-con who apparently his worst crime is he stole a car or something.
I think
feel like he was that bad.
A lot of cars. He was a car thief.
Yeah.
He makes some comment to Spider where he's like, I thought he said I did 30 years for you. Like
he worked for him. He was like
but obviously he went to
worked
jail for something that Spider put him up for.
Yeah.
But I was like, did he say 30?
I don't think so.
I don't think it was 30.
No.
All right, good.
I thought it was more. I thought he said 3.
3 years.
That makes
maybe.
more sense than 30. Because I was like, that's a long.
Because I don't think they have
That's a life
med pods.
sentence.
If they have med pods and they're giving them to prisoners and they're letting little girls
That's a
with
whole-
leukemia die,
No,
then all of
no.
a sudden the residents of Earth, they're kind of dicks too. I don't care.
No. Yeah, I will say, besides from just the special effects being really cool in that movie,
the amazing graphic violence, the gore that is in this movie.
No, but I thought that they did some of the cool shots, like the action sequences. So two that I can think of, besides from the stuff just looking good, was when Matt Damon fires the shotgun crazy explosive round thing.
That was an AK-47.
Was it an AK-47 that did that? So they had these explosive rounds that could go 5 kilometers bursts around.
No, it was like a air burst round. They said like a 5 meter
5
radius.
meter. I'm so a kilometer. 5 meter. Yeah,
Kevin goes big or he goes home.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. So yeah.
That's an atomic weapon.
So this AK is firing these burst rounds and they're explosive. So he's just rapid firing them in slow motion. It looks really cool. And then when they do explode, the robot military officer just bursts into tiny little pieces
really
in slow
cool.
motion. I thought that was a really neat shot in a slow-mo scene.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when Max is fighting Kruger and they do this interesting camera angle thing that is reminiscent of Bullet Time, but not really. But like they turn the camera one way and they turn it back the other way, and they kind of do a slow motion fighting sequence thing. I thought that shot was really technically kind of neat looking.
Yeah.
So they did have some really neat visuals that they, in camera work in the movie.
I do really miss the Steadicam fight scene. So like if you look at the fight scene between Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon, like it's one shot. Like it's kind of they're both in profile and they're kind of moving around them both kind of at the same time. This whole idea of like the shaky cam, like the one person running throughout an entire fight sequence, is getting a little old for me. When you've got guys who are doing a movie called Ip Man, I don't know if you guys have seen that, starring Donnie Yen. He plays the guy who trained Bruce Lee, is pretty much the story of this.
Okay.
There is a fight scene in this movie that is probably one of the greatest fight scenes ever filmed, and it's all done on a Steadicam. He's just circling around Donnie Yen, who is an amazing martial artist in his own right. So I kind of missed that. So that was my only problem with a couple of those fight sequences, is where it's kind of like shaky.
Did that look kind of like Hannah, where Eric Bana is fighting and it's a huge circle?
Yes.
Steadicam?
Yeah.
That was an amazing scene.
And
when
I think
it circles around him fighting like 10 guys and it never stops. One continuous Steadicam shot.
I think you miss a lot of the core. Like I think fight choreography has kind of gone the way of the wayside because of CGI.
Yes, absolutely.
I would have loved to have, in Man of Steel, to go back to that, I would have loved to have seen a fight scene between him and Zod. That you don't have to stand on the street, the showdown,
but more toe to toe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they did that in The Incredible Hulk. There's a great fight scene, of course, where the Hulk drops from the plane and him and the Abomination kind of clash in the middle of the street, and it's all done in that kind of style. So I kind of miss that style in action movies. But other than that, I thought it looked beautiful.
Cool. Well, Dan is out this week, so we don't have a video recovery, but I believe Joe.
I do. I talked to Dan today, and he sent me his video recovery. I actually have to bring it up on my phone because he sent it to me via the phone. Looks like we are doing They Live, which is also a John Carpenter awesome movie starring non-WWF champion. He never won the championship. Just want to put that out there. Roddy Piper. Dan says that Roddy Piper rocks the power mullet as he performs in the role Kurt Russell would have played 10 years before in what amounts to a steady stream of head-scratching one-liners. So if you haven't seen They Live, the premise of the movie is Roddy Piper what is he? Does he say what his job is?
I don't know that they ever say his title.
He's just kind of a loner. Like a walking around loner. He happens upon a box.
Call me Rowdy Piper.
Yeah. He happens upon a box of sunglasses. He puts them on, and he realizes that corporate America has been taken over by aliens, and they are feeding us all of these different in magazines where we think we're reading articles about our home or food. It actually just says obey, sleep, reproduce. They've kind of got us on this this path of compliance, I guess. And Piper kind of finds like a resistance along with, is it Pete David? No. He did the voice of Spawn. That's where I know him from.
Let me look this up here
David
real quick.
Keith. I believe his name is David Keith. They kind of form a friendship. There is a resistance involved. And they film. It is the longest fight sequence captured on film between two actors.
No kidding.
The scene in the alley is technically the longest fight sequence in between two actors.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Ever filmed. Yeah. So I believe it came out in the 88. I think
the 88s.
The 88s. The crazy 88s.
The 88.
I think they just released a Blu-ray, a 25th anniversary edition on Blu-ray. That's got some amazing cover art. So if you haven't seen it, and if you're a fan of John Carpenter or you're a fan of Roddy Piper, go check this one out because it's actually one of my favorite of the John Carpenter movies that he did.
Awesome. Well, thanks for filling in.
It was a really bad one. Sorry, Dan would have done a much better job.
We couldn't have called Dan up on the satellite.
I know we should have done that. Skype with him.
Yeah. So I guess before we wrap it up, let's go around the table and everybody can plug where they can be found. Kevin
Brackett. You can find me, of course, on reviewstl.com and follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
I'm Steve Kelly. You can find me on reviewstl.com and on Twitter at @thegodcavs.
You bastards with your last names. My name is Joe Battisi. You can find me on ReviewSTL. You can also find me on Twitter at Joey Butts, BUTTS21.
But at least you don't have a punctuation mark in your last name.
I do not.
So I am Tom O'Keefe, and you can find me on reviewstl.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert, and also Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. And don't forget that Real Spoilers is also on Facebook, Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. That's real with 2 E's.
We're also on the iTunes.
And we are now on iTunes. So feel free to subscribe. And if you like what you hear, feel free to share it with your friends. And if you don't like what you hear, shut your pie hole.
We don't want to hear your crap.
And Kevin, real quick, tell the kids at home what we'll be spoiling for them next week.
I'm really looking forward to seeing Kick-Ass 2 this week. So
you don't want to do the Butler?
No, yeah. I think Kick-Ass 2 might work a little bit better with our concept.
That's probably accurate.
I could spoil it right now if you want. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen in Kick-Ass.
Save it for next week.
Thanks for tuning in. And until next week, Jerry Maguire had her at hello.